Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Jen Friedman, and on behalf of myself and the Board of Directors of the Academy for Lifelong Learning, we thank you. This is a wonderful, wonderful crowd to have here on this late winter morning. I say late winter because you know we have no spring on Cape Cod, right? So, but thank you so much for coming out for this event, which is on scams and frauds and swindles. And my guess is that we have such a turnout because we've all been affected by this. So I want to introduce our speaker today. Our speaker today is Brian Haendiges. You can applaud. I met Brian at the beginning of this school year at an event, and the minute that I met him, I went, oh my, I really want to interview Brian. And he was nice enough to give me an interview. Actually, it was a Zoom interview, correct? It was a Zoom interview, and so I got to know a little bit about Brian's background. He was, he had so much experience and he had lived in so many different places. I couldn't get over the fact that he had chosen Cape Cod, as his place to stop and stay, and that we were so lucky to have him here on Cape Cod, and that we were luckier still that he chose to spend his time and give his talents to the Academy of Lifelong Learning. So we are delighted to have Brian this morning. I'm going to go back a little bit. I got just a little bit of housekeeping. Okay, is that in the case of any sort of emergency, exits are this way. The elevator is there. The stairs are at the end of the hallway. Restrooms are over here on the left. Okay. Oh, and also, if any of you have an electronic device, could you please turn it off? Because you know that you'll get a scam, right, during this? Or that phone call you've been waiting for a month, it's going to happen while you're here, so so we know that. But Brian right now is teaching here at the Academy for Lifelong Learning. He's got 2 courses going now that are very, very popular. One is retirement topics, or topics in retirement, that is very popular. And the other one is intermediate chess. Okay, I took beginner's chess. Yeah, flunked out of that one. During Brian's presentation, we are going to be doing some videotaping. And so that if you want to raise your hand, we will come over with the microphone. It'll be a bit like, the Oprah show. We'll, bring a microphone over to you. So that if you don't want to be taped, just keep your hand down, and then at the end of the taping, we'll let you have a few minutes to speak with Brian off tape, because if you don't want to be on tape, some people don't, and we understand that. So, as I said, we're going to welcome Brian with a wonderful Academy for Lifelong Learning welcome. And Brian, come and say hello.
That is one of the warmest welcomes I think I've ever gotten. Thank you so much. So, I don't know if you saw us at the before class, but there were a couple of us that were looking at the bottom of the screen here where there's a date on this picture. You're not going to be able to see it from back there unless you've got absolutely amazing eyes. I couldn't even see it up close, but couldn't tell if it was in the 1600s or the 1800s. We were guessing in the 1800s. But I would guess that if you went back to the Roman times, and if they had pockets in their togas, there were probably scams and frauds going on way back then. I'm sure people have always been trying to rip each other off. So welcome to our class on scams and frauds. And importantly, not just what they are, but some of the versions that are out there right now, what some of the latest trends are, and how to identify one if you're in the middle of it, and how to protect yourself against it. And that goes for you and for family, friends, and loved ones as well. There'll be some things in here for your kids or grandkids, not just for you, or parents. So I wanted to start with a warning, which is that you can go down a rabbit hole pretty quickly here, or I worked in Virginia for a while, they'd say a bunny hole. But very quickly it can get dark, and you can think that there's a bad person lurking around every corner looking to give you harm. Don't do that. We are going to talk about what's going on out there and some of the bad things that happen, but don't let it ruin your life by thinking about it all the time. Use some of these tools and use the 80-20 rule and think about the worst things that can go bad and keep an eye out for them, but don't try to constantly guess all the different things that could go bad. The other thing is I wanted to start with a couple of stories, and there's a thread through them, and you'll see when we get to the end where it is. But so I was in my mid-20s. It's a hot summer day. Walking out into through the Hartford Civic Center, through the parking garage, sweating a little bit because we wore suits back then. And this guy greets me with a big warm smile. Great, it's great to see you again. He didn't use my name. I was too embarrassed to admit that I didn't know who he was. Do you need a little louder? Okay, I will. We got to talking, and he said his car was at the Exxon station that was a couple miles down the street, he refused the offer of a ride, but would love a couple of bucks for bus fare. I was out a couple of dollars, and I found out the next day that about 12 other people in the office had fallen for the same scam. That's one. So the second one is big companies have these programs to educate people about scams. So they will give you a fake email, phishing, and see if you respond to it. If you respond to it, then you're told that you need a lesson in being scammed. The head of IT, probably 1,000 employees at a Fortune 75 company that I was at, clicked on one of those fake phishing links that one of his own people had sent out to test people. And he was smart enough to realize that if he didn't come clean on it, a bunch of his people probably would have told him on it, and it would have made it around the hallways. So he used it as a training example for other people. The third example is, so to get ready for this class, I talked with the head of cyber training and cybersecurity at a firm I used to work for last week. And I asked her what some of the trends are. We'll see those in a minute. But she gave me a story about the company that they were using for training on scams had hired somebody. And they hired them through a Zoom process. They had a video interview with a person who looked American, spoke in an American accent, had a Texas address. When they did a little bit of investigation about where they were sending the computer to once they hired this person, turned out that there was a woman in Texas who had rented her house out to North Korea, had a laptop farm with about 50 computers on it, and was using it to have a legitimate address in the United States. Now that's at the extreme end of things, and it did catch them, but my point is, there's some pretty smart people and knowledgeable people that can get caught up in a scam. So don't be embarrassed if it's happened to you. It happens to an awful lot of us. I have if I have time at the end, a story of not only the 2 texts that I got, or phone calls I got on the way here that were scam calls, but literally on the drive here. But I had something happen with my family this morning where they almost got caught up in something, and luckily did not. So it is ubiquitous. All right, let's go to the next screen. So the main point I wanted to make here is that scams are big and that they're growing. People in the back, can you see okay? If not, you can hear okay. That's good. There are several different measures of how big it's growing. Don't take these numbers too seriously. I've got like 2024 and 2025. I think the 2025 is estimates based on data to date. But reported consumer losses, dollars, are up about 25%. The percentage of people reporting that they lost money to scams is up from 27 to 38%. And identity theft in particular is up almost fourfold over the last year. So it is growing. I think the most important number is the B, the billion, more than it is the percentage growth. It's widespread. And there's a little note in the bottom here that when I looked at the 50 states plus DC, the 51 jurisdictions, Massachusetts was number 6, so near the top in terms of identity theft per 1,000. So it's local for us, and it's something we need to pay attention to. That's things on a grand scale. I think numbers are just numbers. But when it hits you at a personal level, that's when it really becomes something that's critical. And so I did a simple Google search on scams and lost money and came up with a bunch of headlines here. These are all big amounts. But one of these comes from, I think, like the paper in San Diego. One is Northwest Chicago. One is in Mashpee, a local Mashpee woman who was the victim of a pig butchering scam where they work you over the course of several months, get to know you really well, and take all your money. It's hard to get your money back once you lose it. So it can be a big amount. What I will say is the things that make headlines are the things that are at the extremes. So, you know, these are $1 million, $1.6 million. They're pretty big. That's scary. The average loss last year was $1,600. And if you know anything about averages, if you have a bunch, even a handful of things that are above $1 million, you need a bunch that are well below 600 in order to average out to 600. So a bunch of these scams are $100, $200. And I would also guess that a bunch of them aren't reported. So these are reported scams. But people are often too embarrassed to say anything, or they don't want to bother with it, and so it wouldn't show up. So big growth in scams when you look at it. So I didn't want to break copyright rules and use the actual Homer Simpson on the right-hand side, but it seems like it's pretty obvious what the scammers want. Why would I bother with a slide on that? I think it's good if you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody and you're wondering whether it's a scam or not, to keep in mind what they want, because it might give you some insight as to why they're asking the kinds of questions that they're asking. So what do scammers want? The number one thing is they want your money. They want to find a way to get it. And I would say everything else falls in the category of if they can't get yours, they want somebody else's money. For example, they might want your personal information so they can get into your account, but they also might want it so they can reach out to somebody else and it will have some credibility because it looks like it's coming from you. Or I've talked with Brian and he said this is okay, so therefore you should think it's okay. I mean, that's, I think, I wouldn't put this in the category of scam, but a marketing technique that I saw years ago is you're trying to set up a big conference at the local civic center. So you call people up and they ask, well, who's going? And you give them the name of 10 other people who haven't signed up yet. And then you talk with each of them and you say who's going, you give them all the other 10, and by the end of it, every one of them's going. But none of them were at the beginning. So scammers will use that same kind of technique as well. There are some other uses, so things like money laundering. We're going to talk about a brushing scam in a little bit. But the big one is the money, so keep that in mind. Right? Yeah, let's go one more. All right, there's a lot here, but I wanted to go through the different ways that scammers can get to us, as well as some of the latest developments. Not all of them are here because I put the slides together before I talked with my friend last week. But on the left-hand side, so I think everybody by now has got used to the term phishing, but a bad email that maybe has a link attached to it that if you click on it, it maybe either sends you a virus or they try to get some information from you. That's phishing. I looked up where that came from because some of the other ones are tied in. It's just a play on the word phishing, phishing for information. You get a text, a bogus text. It's called smishing because text protocols are SMS protocols. That's how texting works. But it's another way that they can get at you. So they can get at you with an email. They can get you with a text. Old school phone call, they can call you up. I got, as I said, 2 of them this morning on the way here. QR codes, which I just learned is called quishing. But so a real example. So for a while, I don't know how many of you have heard about this, but if you go to park in the big city, a lot of times there's no attendant at the parking lot. You have to self-park, and you have to scan the QR code and put in your license plate, and then your credit card number to pay for it. Well, so somebody came up with a little decal that's a QR code. That's a bogus QR code. They post it right over the top of the QR code that the parking uses. And if the parking person hasn't been by to check if there's a fake decal that day, then you get roped into it. So that's one to watch out for. Here, another old school way, in person. So I saw an example in Connecticut. I still get a local news feed of a woman who'd lost $36,000 to a guy who called her up, said, "We think you've been scammed. I'm from the FBI. We want to make sure that I protect you. We're going to come over to your house and make sure that we can take care of everything." He showed up. She was smart enough to take a picture of his car and his license plate, and so he got caught. He was from Boston, came down to Connecticut to steal $36,000. But it can be a person. It could also be just somebody looking over your shoulder. You know, you're at the ATM, you're punching in your code, and somebody's checking it out. You know, if they don't get your card, they're not going to steal it. But you just, we'll get there. But be aware of your surroundings. Sniffers and skimmers. So we took a group of board members through our cybersecurity area at one company, and one of the people that was working there had a sniffer, which showed a bunch of information that was on everybody's phones that was unroomed from the board. And you should have seen the looks on their faces when they saw what was showing up. So it's the ability to look at some of the information that you're processing in an environment. So when we get to protections later, you know, don't do a detailed financial transaction on public Wi-Fi. So it's kind of a dangerous thing to watch out for. A skimmer is a fake machine that might be on top of a gas pump or an ATM, where it looks like the real thing. You put in your card, and somebody's taking your information. So, like I said, black hole, right? I mean, you can get really nervous about this stuff, right? I will just quickly ask if there are any others that people are aware of in terms of avenues of reaching out to people. Okay. All right, if it comes to you later, let me know. We go to the other side, which is they're getting more sophisticated. And let me get first what's here, and then a couple of the developments I got from the conversation last week. So they can spoof a phone number. So the phone numbers I got today, one was from Nebraska, the other was from another area code I didn't recognize. I mean, that's a sign. But sometimes it's a little bit more sophisticated like that. It'll be from your own area code, and I've seen some where it actually shows the next 3 digits in your phone number, so it looks like it's coming from your same town. And they're really good at that. And when I talked with this person last week, she said they're using something now called polymorphic phishing, which just means that polymorphic is changing the shape, that they might change a phone number by 1 digit. So it used to be they'd send it to you one and done. She said they're also getting more persistent. Now they'll try multiple times. And so you get the email, you do block sender, you get another email from an address that's almost the same but not identical, but it's not blocked, and it comes through. And it used to be it was one and done, but if they try like 4 or 5 times in a row, there's a psychological thing in our heads that says if you see something 4 or 5 times, you start to get a little bit more comfortable with it. So they're trying to get under your skin and get it in that way. So something to watch out for. Let's see. I've got an example a little bit later, but they might include a realistic logo in an email. That's something to watch out for. It might be an email from somebody you know. I've got an example of that later. This can't be something I should mistrust. It's from my Uncle Chuck. So they may scrape social media to get information. There are also some examples where they just send a blast to everybody and hope that something that they said hits and matches up to you, so it looks like they know you, but they don't. Those are 2 things to look out for. And there's even been this case, I mentioned the deep fake for this interview process that the company used, but you could have voice verification of a loved one. So if you get the old grandma, grandpa, I'm in jail or I'm in trouble, send money, they can actually make it sound like you're a grandchild. So you've got to watch out for it. So we've got a way to protect against that too. So, all right, don't change yet. So, a couple of things that she mentioned. One was more persistent, as I said. The other one is they're asking for smaller dollar amounts than they used to, so they don't scare you quite as much. And the other one is they're using more targeting. So, for example, Christmas time, you're going to get more messages about packages that haven't been delivered appropriately. Or tax time, which we're coming up on, or refund season especially, you might get more refund scams or tax scams. So things to watch out there if there's a disaster. So after the LA fires, everybody, their hearts went out to LA, and so there were a lot of fake charities. You've got to watch out for those. So that's a little bit more of the forms of scams. All right. So because forms of scams are constantly changing, It is useful to see some of them so you get an idea of what they look like, but I think there's a broader category of red flags, signals that there might be a problem that persist even if the underlying scam itself changes a little bit. And so those are things to keep an eye out for. And this first category, it's really two that I put together in one. It's a combination of pressure and secrecy. Sometimes they don't show up together, sometimes they do. That's why I've kind of lumped them together, and that way you can fit them all on one page too. So, but the pressure, if they call up and they're putting heavy pressure on you, you have to act now. You've got to do this right now. That's a sign that there's some kind of a problem. If they may even go to name calling, vulgar language, you are being so stupid. Do you want to lose $10,000? You shouldn't do it. You've got to act right away. Those are all signs that there's some kind of a problem. Right? Scare tactics. You know that you have a loved one who's in danger right now. That's scary. So they're trying to get you. Yeah, I've hacked your, or somebody's hacked your computer. I'm calling from the fraud services, and we're going to help it out. The story I'll tell you at the end started with, you know, my son got a call over the weekend, or he spotted that his card was missing, and he went to sign into a fraud site or call a fraud number and thought he called the wrong number, and ended up giving information away that he shouldn't have. Any of those pressure things are things to watch out for. I actually had was used this, and maybe it's not technically a scam. I felt scammed, but had gone on vacation with my daughter and son-in-law recently, and we checked in, and they told us when we checked in, she had used a third-party booking company. I will never use a third-party booking company again, but and I don't want to use a company name, but it rhymes with Nexpedia. And they told us that we had double bookings according to the records. We got on the phone with the company, started talking with them, and at the beginning they said, well, we can cancel the room, but to do that you've got to pay a rescheduling fee. And it started at like $400, and at the end of it they were up to like $12,000. And I said, yeah, if that's what you want, please have your lawyer contact my lawyer, and we'll take care of it. Never heard from them again. Talked to the desk the next day, and they said they can't do anything. You're already checked in. You're fine. But because it was the same pressure tactics, my alarms went up. And even though it was a legitimate company, that same pressure is something to try to resist, even in a legitimate type of environment, if you think that's legitimate. So the secrecy piece is, I think you've probably seen the ads by now on television where somebody asks you to pay for something with a gift card, get a Visa gift card for me, an Amazon gift card, that's probably legit. Any source of payment where they're insisting that the payment be essentially non-traceable and non-reversible, that's a sign that there's some kind of a damage. That's a red flag. So other examples I've had here, Venmo, I didn't even know what Zelle was until I got ready for this class, but it's kind of like a Western Union between banks, Western Union wire transfer, crypto, right? You know, I haven't bought crypto yet, and I don't intend to. That's from a different class. That's retirement topics class and investments. So, all right, need for secrecy. Don't tell anybody about this. We want to make sure the scammers out there don't find out what's going on. Don't tell the police what's going on. Just deal with me directly. I'm from the FBI. That's another red flag. Let's go to the next one. All right. So I was several years ago when my son was smaller, hiking with him, and I said to him, I think it's going to rain. It feels like it's going to rain. And he looked at me like there was something wrong. He's like, what do you mean? You think it feels like it's going to rain? So, and I knew I had the feeling, but it wasn't until I parsed it and analyzed it that I figured out where it was coming from. I'm like, well, the sky just got darker, and the wind picked up a little bit, the temperature dropped, the air pressure feels a little bit heavier, and look at the leaves on the trees, they're all flipped over with the underside pointing towards the sky. And I didn't realize that I'd noticed those things, but put together, it felt like rain, and yes, 10 minutes later it started to rain. One red flag is if it doesn't feel right, that might be something that you got to watch out for. You might not even know why, but it just doesn't feel right. Take that as a warning signal. Have your antenna up and think of that as a likely scam. Some examples of things that don't feel right. You don't know the person who's contacting you, right? when that guy approached me in the garage. I didn't know him. I was too embarrassed to admit it to myself, but that was a sign that I should have watched out. If you see an email address, I don't know why, if they can do polymorphic phishing, they can't change email addresses to do the same thing, but a lot of times a scam email will say at gmail.com, AOL.com. If it does, there's a good chance it's a scam email, so watch out for it. If it's from your bank, it's going to have the name in the title. They might have a brand name that's really close to the real thing. Visa, I said here, spelled with a Z. I saw one this week from PayPal, but it had all funny letters and an underscore in it. So just watch out for that kind of stuff. I think there's an example later with Xfinity. They wanted me to update my service address, but it was X space, F space, etc., all the way across. So it wasn't the real thing. So that's something to watch out for. If you have especially a bank or financial institution that you work with and they send you an attachment, it's very likely that that's a scam. They don't usually send attachments. So that's something to watch out for as well.
Yeah, they usually send encrypted messages, right?
So we had the comment that do they usually send encrypted messages? And yes, very often, if you're dealing with a financial institution, it will be encrypted. Not always, but something to watch out for. And when we talk about protections, I mean, I'll just go there right now because we're hot on it. Don't click on the link. Don't call a number that's in the email or in the text. Look at the number on the back of your card and call that number. All right. You know, for the scam about, and this is even dated now, that they can replicate voices, but you're talking with your grandchild and it doesn't sound like you. I have a cold, or we've got a bad connection, something like that. That's another way that they'll get around it. And then any request to provide personal information, a password, a PIN, an account number, something like that, that's something to watch out for as well. All right. We've got one more category of red flags. And this is the other side. So we said, you know, heavy pressure is one. Something bad's going to happen to you. This is the other side of it. Something really good has happened to you or is going to happen to you. It's too good to be true. We do this in the investment class. If the investment looks too good to be true, it's not. Don't buy that investment or buy it only with caution, understanding the risks. Same thing for these. So any kind of a get-rich-quick promise, watch out for. You get an $8,000 check in the mail. You're about ready to cash it, and then an email comes through that says, oh, I'm sorry we sent that to you by mistake. Can you send a $20 processing fee? We'll let you keep the check, something like that. I mean, that's too good to be true, right? You'd want a prize, or I noticed that you purchased the new Apple iPhone 16. We just need you to pay the shipping fee, the $20 shipping fee. So just submit your credit card here, take care of it. That's another way that they might get at it. You might be asked to pay money in order to get a job or to get a job interview. That's a sign that there's something up. Here, you can make $500 an hour. I was joking that if I look back at my emails, I think I purchased Geek Squad about 12 times in the last year, and Apple iPhone 16 another half dozen times, and I've got a bunch of tolls that are due. And the good thing is I can make up to $5,000 a day because they've looked at my resume. I can do what I do now. If they'd really looked at my resume, they'd see I'm retired, and I'd be glad to do that for $5,000 a day, but I didn't really believe it. So, I've shortcut what can be a 2-month-long, 3-month-long process to, I know we've just met, but I think I love you. Somebody builds up a friendship with you over time. They get into your confidence, and then the big thing comes. It's we've had such a great relationship. Something really bad happened to my sister. She's pregnant with a baby. She had to go into the hospital. She doesn't have medical coverage, and her 4-year-old doesn't have money to get to daycare. Is there any way you could help me out? I don't need much. Just send me a couple $1,000 and see if you can help me out. Now that you're good friends, they know where to go. So another one to watch out for. Right? Okay. Those are categories of red flags. Let's look at some specific examples that use those. I think most of you have probably by now had the your package cannot be delivered. Yeah. Amazon, UPS, USPS, I don't know if there are any others. Just enter your code here. Immediately report that as junk or get rid of it. That won't happen. Here's a second one. It's called a brushing scam. It doesn't on the surface seem like it's that damaging. You might get something in the mail from Amazon that you didn't order. I got a metal whiskey glass once that had no place in my house. And I didn't know where it came from. But what they're doing many times is they'll use your address, say that you bought it, then they'll put up a review in your name so it looks like one of those verified reviews. Is it as harmful as the others? Probably not, but something you probably ought to do something about if you can. Just be aware. It's one of those, it feels too good to be true things, so, right? Although, I mean, I only want a whiskey flask, it wasn't a big deal, but we need to re-verify your information. Your account's about to expire, and it almost always says today, and that's that urgency again. So just by coincidence, you happen to get the email on the same day that your account's going to expire or the text. I mentioned the Xfinity example already. The toll example, I'm going to give an example here of the targeting. So this has got a lot of press lately. You owe money to EasyPass, something like that. So the person I was talking to, this security expert last week, she lives further south in Virginia, but she was driving up into Virginia. She got over the Virginia border, and she got a text right away that says you owe a toll to EasyPass, which is the usual one they have in Virginia. She knew it was a scam right away because she doesn't have EasyPass, she has SunPass, which is a different one. I got one a couple of weeks ago that said I owed tolls in the UK. I haven't been to the UK in about a dozen years. But if they sent that out to 10,000 people, they might have found 10 that have recently been to the UK. And so for those 10 people, it fits and it feels like they found it, and it really could be accurate. So you've got to watch for that. There's an old investment scam we talked about in retirement class where you call up a group of people on the first day and you say, hey, I have inside information. I know I'm not supposed to share it, but this stock is definitely going up today. And you call another group the same size and you say, this stock is definitely going down today. And one of those two you're going to be right on the next day, and you call them back and you split them up into two groups and you say, I was right yesterday, and here's what's going to happen today. And after 3 or 4 of those calls, there's a small group you've been right with 4 days in a row. You're like, my source is drying up. You got to put in your money now if you're going to do anything. You can trust me because I've been right 4 days in a row. And they get you. Now, those people, the scammer was not right. They just found the group that it happened to be right for. So you got to watch for that. All right, I said I'd give an example of whaling. So fishing is going after everybody, trying to find somebody. Whaling is targeting a specific person. Probably not a big deal for most of us, but older people tend to have more money. Like Willie Sutton said, why do you rob banks? That's where the money is. So we tend to have more money. It's something to watch out for. But I had a board member who was traveling to the Far East for a meeting. While he was in the air, somebody in his office got a call that they send a wire so they can complete the fees for the country he was going to for the taxes that were due before their meeting started. So, it was not an individual, the company was out like 14 grand, but things to watch out for. All right, one more set of examples before we get to the solutions. This is the imminent personal disaster, so this fits with the urgency. I didn't want to put a picture of a child in jail up here, so I put a dog. But you might get that phone call that Grandma, Grandpa, I've been in an accident, I'm in jail, I need some bail money, I need some help, I'm going to put my attorney on the phone, something like that. And if it's in the middle of the night, you're not that awake, or if they fake the voice, it feels really real. We've got a solution for that in a minute. You have a lien pending. The IRS is going to put a lien on all of your earnings, and so you've got to watch out for it, or your accounts aren't going to be available to you. That's imminent disaster. There's an officer on the way to your house. He's about to arrest you if you don't pay your fine. Right? From afar away, that's ridiculous. How could I fall for that? But it's not. It's people fall for it all the time, and I've met 3 different people just in the circle that I know, not from classes, that have all been victim of the Grandma Grandpa scheme. fake tech support. So I see you've got a problem on your computer here, and don't worry, we can take care of it. Just give me a few little details, let me in co-browse, and I'll be able to fix it for you. So the very thing you're afraid of happening, they're using to get at you and make that happen. A fake fraud report would be along the same lines. So you know, you've had a bad an attempted fraud, and this is your credit card company. Want to confirm the information. So, all right. Okay, one more set of examples. This one on the good side, they're praying to your good nature. You get a call, very common one is a policeman's benevolent fund or the equivalent, and they want some kind of a donation. I talked about the romantic emergency already. I got a text from, not a text, an email from my uncle, he doesn't text, who's 91. Here's some pictures I took this morning. He's an avid photographer. And so I really believed it was true, and so I clicked on it. I was able to get out without any harm, but it was a scam. So again, they sent it to 10,000, and somebody's got an uncle who's an avid photographer, so it works. Yeah. I'm not immune. So, here's an actual example. Some of the information has been redacted, but this is an email that I got last week. There was actually a Citibank logo on it. It doesn't show here. But you can see that the email address at the top is noreply@alhemmer.com. That's not a legitimate company email. If you were to hover over the links where it says yes and no at the bottom, and I don't necessarily recommend this, I would just get rid of it as soon as you think it's suspicious. But if you hover over the links, you'll see a link that doesn't look legit either. It'll have like some big long name attached to it that doesn't look like it has anything to do with the company. That's something to watch out for. I actually, because I knew the class was coming up, I called Citibank and I said, I think somebody's attempting a scam, and could you verify that? I got 6 seconds into my explanation immediately. He says, yes, absolutely, that's a scam. Another way you can tell is he went to the email address, but he said, look at the bottom. He said, there's no contact information, and there's no last 4 digits of your account number. I didn't know that was an identifying approach, but so all of those are ways to add up. That's a real way, but especially looking at the email is a practical one.
Are you saying if it was a legitimate one, the last 4 of your social security would be on it? Or would not?
So the question was, if it's legitimate, would it have the last 4 digits of your, and I said bank account number, not social security number, or not bank account, credit card number.
Okay.
For, in this case, Citibank, that's what the representative told me. I don't know if it's true for other cards or not, but it was in that case. But, you know, I didn't need to go that far. I already knew before I got there. But the more tools you have in the toolbox, the better chance you have of fixing the problem. So fixing the things you might need a toolbox for, let's talk about leaks for a minute, and then we'll go to protections. So data leaks have gotten very common. When I gave this class last year to my retirement group, I think I had 5 different notices of security breaches on my desk at the same time, all of which offered credit monitoring services. I already had a credit monitoring service. I didn't need them. But a question I often get is, so how much should I be worried about this stuff? And I would say it's so common. I can remember sitting at a function where I had the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, on one side and one of his team on the other side, and listening to them talk about everything that was going on every single day with people trying to scam. It was like, I didn't want to even go near my computer when I got home. It was that scary. But he said, just assume your information's out there already. The stuff that is in most of these leaks. The best thing you can do is just make sure you've got some kind of monitoring service so you're paying attention to it. But don't stay up all night worried about it. So he gave me other stuff to keep me up all night to worry about. So, and I would say the same thing to you. Is just you know, you get these mailings. If you don't already have a service, it might be worthwhile using the one that they offer. Just to make sure that it really is legit what you're getting. And it can be a little scary to input a whole bunch of personal financial information in. If you've just been the victim of a breach, even if it's to another company that you think you can trust is gonna fix it, so, that's, but I would say try not to worry about it too much. Yes?
What kind of service are you referring to?
So, what kind of service am I referring to? So when we get to protections, in my case, there are several different credit monitoring services. The one I use is LifeLock by Norton, and they're purchased by Norton a few years ago. And we'll talk about that in a moment. All right. I think we're on schedule, so, yes, we got one more.
When you buy an iPhone, an Apple iPhone, they say it comes with a lot of protection already. Is that true, or should I get extra and more comes?
So, I don't know the answer. So the question was, when you buy an Apple iPhone, it says it comes with a lot of protections already. Is that enough, or should I buy additional? I don't know. I really don't know that situation. I don't ever remember being offered that when I bought an iPhone. I've got my protections separately, but let's talk about some of the protections more broadly, and maybe that's an individual situation that would be worth just asking a bunch more questions. And it's okay if you're wondering about any of this stuff to ask. Stay with that Apple rep until you get an answer that you like, and just ask them 20 times. So if you have to be annoying, it's okay. You're trying to protect yourself. All right, so online, although I've accidentally mixed in a little bit of phone stuff as well, but online to protect yourself, password management. Especially for financial accounts, it's good to have a pretty complicated password and to change it periodically. People hate the hassle of having a complicated password. Here's a technique you could use that would give you a pretty complicated password, but easy for you to remember. Pick one of your favorite songs, and the first line of lyrics, take the first letter of each word. So like, if it were, oh say can you see, it's the O and O, S and say, C and can, like that. And then put a couple of numbers after it. That might be a way that you can pretty readily come up with something that's not a word, it's not searchable, but might be a fit for you. Let's see. Keep different passwords for different sites. Don't use the same one everywhere, and especially for financial accounts, don't use the same password on your bank account that you're using on your Facebook account, something like that. Once they find it in one place, they can use it in 10 other places. You do have to keep them separate. Do change them periodically, and if two-factor authentication is available, use it. That's when they say, we'd like to send a code to your phone before you can get into the account. I keep that, and I don't turn it off. That's, I think it's a good protection to have. So sometimes the thing doesn't show up right away. You can ask for a phone call instead on the computer calls. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to ask another question, however.
Don't be, that's why we're here.
Okay, so the passwords oftentimes,
Okay, so oftentimes they'll suggest, some weird password, use this instead of your own. Are those safe? And I don't really get it. And then I have different passwords for different sites, and yeah.
So there are password protocols or suggested strength levels for passwords, and this is part of the training we did at a large company. And if you use, I'll give you some examples in a minute of the most common passwords out there, but if you just use your dog's name, then there's a pretty good chance that might be replicated, whereas if you can change a bunch of random letters and numbers and cases, it's harder to crack. The hard thing for you, though, is you got to keep track of that somewhere so that you can get back in. Or as Jimmy Fallon says, I forgot password, I thought that was my password. So,
what about the ones that they suggest?
So the ones they suggest,
Sometimes they come up
I
with
think
it.
are probably going to be legitimate as long as you're on a legitimate site.
Okay.
If it shows up in an email and they suggest it, you need to change your password, don't do it. But if it's you've logged in yourself and they're saying here's a password you could use, I think that's probably legit.
Ryan?
Yes.
What about, for the mobile phone, I try to use Face ID.
Yeah.
Is that really safe?
So again, I just have an interest in this stuff. I'm not a detailed expert on a lot of it. I believe that the facial ID is pretty good. So I'll use it myself. It doesn't always recognize me. If I have a bad cold or something, it's like you have to put in your password. So, or I forget, I have my glasses off and it doesn't recognize me. So, I know they've even got technology now that'll recognize you with or without a mask, for example. So, all right, the second one is not online, it's more by phone, but it's establish a family password so that if there is an emergency, that you've got some kind of a password established. The downside is that your family has to all remember it, and they might not, if they're anything like my family. So you can always use the approach that my dad did. So he got one of those, Grandpa, you know, I'm in jail, I need some bail money. He said, oh, is this Ashley? They're like, yes, it is. I know I don't sound normal. He says, well, you're not her because I don't have a granddaughter named Ashley. So he used a fake name, testing of information. So that was another approach, which I thought was pretty clever for an 89-year-old. So, all right. I said this already, I'll say it again, it's worth repeating. Don't open, answer, or click something that you don't know. If you're not sure, ignore it. Both of those spam calls today went straight to voicemail. Right? Yeah, check the email addresses at the top. When I was sitting between those two folks, one of them said, I have two different email accounts, one for all my social media stuff and one for my financial stuff. That might be a little bit too far for some people, but considering their jobs, it's probably not too far for them. The other one said, oh, I have two separate computers, one for each. So, antivirus scans, I think you can still do. And again, I said if there are any other suggestions people have that they've used, like we had a discussion in our retirement class last year about password safes. Like my kids will keep their passwords in an electronic password safe so you can use them. I think that's a decent option. I haven't got that comfortable yet. I'm still a little old school, but that's an option. All right. The most, this is a year old, so it may have changed. These are the 15 most common passwords out there. I will just say if you see one of yours up there, when you get home, change it. If you've got Open Sesame, 1, 2, 3, change it. If you've got anything that can be easily guessed, change it. That's the only reason I'm putting this up there. For these that look like they're random letters and numbers, they're not. They're just like the top keys on the keyboard. Like the last one, QWERTY. It's those are the top letters and the top numbers. They just go back and forth. So. All right. On the phone, besides using my dad's trick, I don't know that they're worth that much anymore. You can still do a do not call list, but because of the polymorphic phishing, that might not protect you that much. The big thing is screen your calls. If you don't know who it is, let it go to voicemail. If it's important, they will call you again. They will find a way to get back to you, or they'll leave a voicemail. You have to leave space in your voicemail so people can leave messages, so make sure it's cleaned out. But you don't have to answer right away. You do not have to answer right away. Yes?
I was gonna say, I have my phone set to silence unknown calls, so they go
Yeah.
right to voicemail. I figure if it's a doctor or a dentist who's not on my contact list, they'll leave a message if it's a legit call.
Perfect.
That way you don't have to have the urge to answer
Repeat
your
that for
phone.
the tape, that we have someone who uses silence unknown calls on their phone as the constant setting, so you don't have to be annoyed by that temptation. So, right. If you do feel compelled to answer, so I said don't answer, but if you do feel compelled to answer, and they say, is this Brian? The first thing is, who's calling, please? Because a couple of times I picked up a pressure situation and I didn't know who it was. But you don't say yes. You don't say yes because you don't want to confirm the identity, and you don't want to have them to have a voice record of you saying the word yes, which might be a little paranoid, but I would always go with who's calling, please. And if they might repeat the question, oh, we're calling for Brian. Is this Brian? Who's calling, please? And if they repeat a third time, the phone, it's gone before that, right? Some people in the last class mentioned they use reverse number lookup. It's really hard to find one for free, and you might get scammed in the process. You can do a Google search on the number that called you and put the word scam next to it. Sometimes that'll tell you if it's a scam. You can look where the area code's from, like I looked up the one this morning, it's from Nebraska. That's really out of curiosity and interest. If you don't know it, don't answer it. That's your first rule. You don't have to go any further. but some people are curious, and so if you get curious, you can look. And again, if there are any other suggestions, which we already got one without asking for, so thank you.
Can I ask where silence unknown calls is?
So where is silence your calls
It's under
on the
your
phone?
settings, I have an iPhone, but it's under your settings, I think it's under
Under
cellular.
settings. Why don't we try to grab that right after class? So I can sort of see if we've got time. So, all right, so this is a kind of a catch-all with other ways that you can protect yourself, but because there are other ways that you might be approached besides email or phone. But if you have to contact your credit card company, use the number that's on the back of the card. If you don't have your card, it's been lost or it's been stolen, then find some other way to contact the legitimate credit card company. Don't use a link that's been sent to you, whether it's by phone or by email. Use the number on the back of the card. Right? If somebody approaches you for a charitable donation, we're warm-hearted people. We want to help people out. It's really hard to say no. But if you don't know the charity, say no. And a trick I've learned, so I'll mention a book that I read. It's called Influence by this guy, Bob Cialdini. He spells his name CIA, or the first three letters like the agency, University of Arizona. It's called Influence, but it's not about political influence, it's about psychological tricks that people will use on you and how to protect yourself against them. You can say, or use this phrase, "I'm sorry, but I have a policy of only giving to charities that I know." Once you establish a policy, it gives you some authority, and it's an easier way for people that have a hard time to say no to say no. Or you can say, "I have a policy of donating only to charities where I met somebody in person." And then if they offer to come to your house, you say no. Let's see, all my donations for this year are already allocated. That's another way. It'd be better if you don't answer it in the first place or just hang up, but some people are too polite. I had somebody I used to work with, their mom got really annoyed because she got the calls at dinner all the time, asking for stuff. And she had come in from outside the country, and they told her, well, next time you answer, just say, because she had to answer, say, "We're not interested," and hang up the phone. And so she got a call the next night at dinner, and she says, "We're not interesting," and hangs up the phone. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Do look at your credit card statements, and not just for the big purchases. Look for the small ones as well. I found one several years ago, a couple of purchases for about $1. But they were trying to test it out at a small level, and if it worked, then they were going to a bigger level. I had to cancel that card, and now I'm on my Marriott Visa card number 8. But credit monitoring or a credit freeze, that's been a suggestion a number of people have mentioned that they use. And especially if you're a retiree and you're not likely to need new credit, it doesn't hurt for you to call or contact the 3 credit agencies and put a freeze on. You can always come back to it later. The credit monitoring, like I said, been using LifeLock, for example, but you can use whatever you think is appropriate for you if you want to. That's the identity theft protection. You do the same thing, right? I don't think most of us need the next one, reputation defender, but I can remember, I was at a party once, and somebody said, "I wonder how old so-and-so is across the street." And I Googled it, and I was like, "Look, she's 58, it's and it was really scary. Everybody was, how quickly you could find it out. I was wondering how old my boss was, where I worked at a company, and looked it up. I couldn't find anything, because she was using Reputation Defender, and it scrapes her information off of a bunch of popular sites. So it's kind of expensive. I think it's about like $500, something like that, and a year. So it probably doesn't do that much for you. I wouldn't go that far, but unless you have a high profile position somewhere. You've all heard this: don't post on Facebook or other social media when you're on vacation. My kids think that's nonsense because everybody does it, but some things you're never going to get around. But try not to, and arm your alarm system. Really unfortunate one in the upper right, and this has happened a lot, is somebody dies, the people closest to them are at a funeral, and the funeral service has been announced, the time and location in advance, and that's when your house gets robbed. So when my wife passed away, we had a close friend come sit at the house the whole time. There was no problem, but just something to keep an eye out for. Don't put anything that's financial or personal on public Wi-Fi. I talked about that already. ATMs, if you have to use an ATM, the drive-up one is probably safer than the walk-up one. If you use a walk-up one, try to do it during the day. If it is at night, go with somebody or look around ahead of time beforehand. Just be aware of your surroundings. Good rule of thumb for anything. If you're using a card or putting in a password, look around, see if there's anybody that's shadowing you. Do not go into Starbucks, use your laptop, and have a Post-it note on it that has your password sitting right in the front. That's probably a bad idea. Take a second look at a gas station pump or an ATM. Just see if it looks like there's anything that's sticking out a little bit beyond normal. I couldn't tell you what a fake skimmer looks like, but if you Google it, you might be able to find out. If it's a place you're used to going to all the time, if somebody did go so far as to put a skimmer in, then you would notice it. You wouldn't maybe see the particulars, but something would feel off when we go back to that red flag category. And then you're walking in an area, well, if it feels unsafe, don't walk in that area. If you have to, try to buddy up, or call security and have them walk you out to your car. Yes?
In terms of freezes, Social Security will allow you to freeze your information. So you just check, go to.
Here, we've got a mic coming, so.
In terms of freezes, Social Security will allow you to freeze all your information so it can't be changed, as somebody tried to do to me, and have my checks sent to their bank account. So.
Right, but then you can't access it online if you want to. I do that.
So there's a trade-off. I'm just repeating for the videotape that there is a trade-off, and one of those trade-offs is then you won't be able to access your information online. But it can work as a way to protect yourself if you feel like you're at threat of being compromised. So, all right. There's some things that aren't here, but that came up in my recent conversation with a person last week. Which is on social media. Lock it down. So just make it available to family and friends. I don't know exactly how to do that on Facebook because I'm not on Facebook, but if you're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just make sure it's private. It's just the family and friends. It's not open to the public. And she also mentioned don't overshare. So it seems obvious, but don't put a phone number, an email address, something like that in your Facebook account where people can see it. Send a private message to somebody if you have to. And she said there is the data that you can't see, or metadata, that sits behind things sometimes shows up. And so she suggested turn off location services. Otherwise, you take a picture of the kid in the park and somebody can see where the kid was. And oh, hey, we go to this park every day. And you've got some information. So that's the creepy part of it. But turn off your location services. No, I don't know how to do that. Anticipating a question. All right, I want to just go a little bit deeper, specifically on credit cards and debit cards, just for a moment. A credit card usually has an upper limit, as long as you look at your statement and report it quickly, where you can't. If there is a bad charge on it, you can't be hit for more than either $50 or $75. Some of them may even be $100, but it's a fairly low amount. The debit card, if they get your debit card number, you can lose everything that you've got in that account. That's a big difference. I've told my kids a dozen times, don't use your debit card. And there's a credit card feature on a debit card. Some people have asked, is it okay if I use that? I think it is, as long as you don't get confused as to which one you're doing, which I think it's easy to do. So I would try to stay away from the debit card if you can. The downside of a credit card is you're spending money you don't have yet, and it can be addictive. So if you're giving advice to a child or grandchild, it might be hard for them to pay it off every month, and they might spend it before got it. But trade-off wise, if it protects against, especially as you start to accumulate assets and get older, you can protect against that loss, it's helpful. And it can also help you build your credit. The other advantage is you get miles or reward points, something like that. I know some people they use only Discover because they get the dollars back at the end of the year. They like the cash. I've got, I don't know, enough Myriad points to go for a couple months somewhere, so go ahead.
So my credit card keeps being compromised, and I only have it like, say, a month, and then, there's all these false charges, so.
All right, so we have somebody whose credit card is continually compromised, in as short a time period as a month. I don't know, I'm guessing, but I would guess that there's some place that you're going on the regular where they've got information or they're already into your system. And it's probably the first one. I don't know. I don't know how to find a cyber expert who could look at that. That's, I don't know if anybody has any suggestions here.
I would just give it
Call the fraud department of that credit card.
Yeah, fraud department of the credit card company, go to a different credit card company. If it's still showing up at a different credit card company, that's like, when you plug in the new light into the outlet and it doesn't turn on either, and you know it's a good bulb, that there's something wrong with the circuit. So that might be another way to do it. We had another suggestion.
I had it happen to me within the last month as well, and the fraud department told me to tap when possible, not insert my card into the machine.
So we had somebody who, the suggestion was to tap when you purchase as
Not
opposed
to
to
put them
sliding.
in, is what they told me.
Was it a debit card or a credit card?
It's a credit card.
And that was a credit card. So we have one more. Yes. Hi. Yes.
Do you suggest turning your cell phone off every night and your computer completely?
Do I suggest turning your cell phone and computer off every night? I know in these classes that we took, they did recommend that. I personally am probably not very good at that, but that is one of the recommendations I saw, so that there's less chance of somebody being able to get in. So.
Will that decrease, could that decrease fraud if you did that
I think
nightly?
it could potentially.
It could eventually, okay.
I think most of the time, for somebody to be able to get in, they need your assistance to do that. But if it makes you feel better, and literally help you sleep better at night, then do it. So, yeah. All right. Before I go to entertainment, I did want to tell a story. So I got on the phone with I got a FaceTime call this morning from my granddaughter, who's like 3.5, which meant that I could only see like the top part of her forehead and the roof of the car as she was on the way to daycare. And after we had introductions, her dad said, I think I got scammed on Saturday. Weird coincidence given the class today. And he had lost his debit card. It looked like he had a bad charge on it. I gave him a lecture about not using a debit card. And they got on the phone with the bank this morning. He had called a number and wasn't comfortable that it was a legit number when he called. They found out, they got on the phone with the bank. Fortunately, it was a legit fraud line, so he didn't get ripped off. And the $6 charge at Dunkin' Donuts turned out that it probably was legit. He'd just forgotten that he'd gone there. So in retrospect, for an hour or two's worth of time in investigation, they had some peace of mind and learned a lesson. But that lesson could have been everything in their bank account. So they're not using the debit card anymore. I got another question from my daughter-in-law. Well, how about, is it okay to have a draft on your bank account, or would you recommend that you only pay through credit cards if there's a monthly automatic payment on something? If it's a legitimate entity that you're dealing with and you feel good about their security system, then I think yes, it would be fine to have a draft on the account. But if you use the card, then you do have that automatic protection and you also get the points. So something to think about. So, and as long as you pay off the credit card every month, so you don't ruin your credit, it can help. Yes?
Just a suggestion, I'm terrified of debit cards.
Yeah.
But the ATM cards are both debit cards
I go to the bank, when they send me one of those ATM cards, they can put a $1 limit on the debit side.
Oh, great.
But you have to, I
Great.
mean, I had to do it in person, but.
So I'll repeat that. So a lot of the debit cards you get from the bank also have a credit feature, and if you want to use that.
No, ATM and.
Or ATM card.
and debit.
ATM and debit, you can go to the bank and get a $1 limit put on the debit feature, so that you don't use it, as long as you still have access to the bank and can get money when you need it. So, yeah, a great idea. And I expected to get some of those at this, and that's one of the best parts. Almost everybody here has been affected by this stuff in some way or another, and if you haven't been directly, one of your family members has. So it is ubiquitous. You just got to keep an eye out for it. All right, we got one more here.
I've heard that Venmo is not very good to use because you can get a lot of information out of your Venmo account, but that Zelle is
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know enough to compare Venmo and Zelle. The question was, what is one safer than the other? And we have a comment here, so go ahead.
Well, I heard actually the opposite. You know, the banks are trying to sell you Zelle now, and I heard that actually is a worse approach. I don't know.
So we had another comment that somebody heard exactly the opposite, that Zelle was worse and Venmo was better. Do you have one more comment on this in the back?
Zelle is worse because I got scammed pretty badly with use of Zelle, because once that money is transferred, it's gone. You can't get it back.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So I've never heard of Zelle before. I get ready for this class. I do use Venmo. I actually have it connected to a separate bank account. Maybe that's paranoid, but an old one that I had left over from when I lived in Connecticut, and just kept it around just for Venmo, and that's it. So, yes.
Question going back to credit cards.
Yes.
We got scammed recently. I have a card that I only use in restaurants.
Hmm.
And the challenge with the restaurant is they give you a bill, you hand over your credit card and it disappears. And fortunately, the bank called me up and said, have you really just bought 3 $100 gift cards in Kohl's in Medfield? And this card was used initially to buy a cup of coffee at McDonald's. Tested it worked. And then the number, and then the purchase of the gift cards. I got the money back, but my concern is, I'd only been to like 3 restaurants in the last week, so one of those must have somehow taken it and photographed the card and used it, unless you have any other thoughts on that.
Well, and I know you could probably all hear, but just to repeat it for the tape, that we had an example of somebody who only uses one particular card for restaurants. And in restaurants, at least in the US, I know a lot of times in other countries, they'll come right to your table. They don't take the card away. You can actually put it in there. You can see what they do, or even tap it. But in this case, there was a recent scam, and there was a suspicion that maybe somebody who worked at the restaurant had photocopied the card or otherwise taken the card information. I don't have a solid answer for that other than to keep an eye on it. The fraud companies, the credit card companies are pretty good. In this case, the card had been used to purchase 3 gift cards, and so the fraud department at the credit card company caught it. Just keep an eye on things. If it's a restaurant, you're probably okay. And you can talk with them and say, do you have a machine in the back you could bring out here? If you're comfortable asking for that, that would be another suggestion. I think the first thing you did though is you have a card that's only used for restaurants. That's probably a pretty good protection there. At least you're limiting your exposure, and it's a credit card, not a debit card. That's another good thing. All right. Yes.
Sometimes I get a email or a text message that says, this charge, such and such amount is being charged to your account. If this is not you, please, respond. I never do because I feel like it's a scam.
All right, so you might get something that says either by text or by email. I've gotten both. That says it appears that there's this fraudulent charge on your account. Click here to confirm. Should I do that? My answer is no. If you see something like that, call the company that says that they charged you, call them on a number that you know, or contact them on a URL that you know, and ask if there's a problem. But do not click on the link or call a number that you see in an email or a text. All right. Yes, we got one more.
You can turn on in your credit card that you can get a text every time it's used, which will help you keep up with.
Right. So another great suggestion, you can turn on some credit cards a feature that will send you a text every time that your card is used.
They're called alerts.
Alerts.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So that's a great idea. Thank you. All right. Any other protections? And I'll close with entertainment. So yes, one more.
One quick protection, so everybody has a morning routine, you know, you use coffee, having paper, I do my Wordle, then I always click on my credit card company because every penny charged from the day before is there, because you don't always remember, but you remember yesterday. And you can also catch like your spouse making weird charges that you're, went to Bass Pro again. So, it's really, it takes 5 seconds to log in, you see the pending, great, click out.
So we got one more great suggestion was, and for a lot of these, again, I said don't drive yourself nuts, but if you find a routine that's comfortable for you, gives you some peace of mind, do it. This suggestion was every morning, with your cup of coffee, log in and see what your credit card was last used for, because we can remember yesterday, even if we can't remember last week, usually. And if there's a spouse involved, you can usually catch them if they're up to something. So, yeah, all right, one more, and then we'll wrap up. So.
It's not on credit cards, but on email in general. How secure is my email? Can I put a credit card number in my email?
A very broad question about how secure is my email. I would prefer to pay some other way if you could, rather than put a credit card number in your email. If you can use PayPal, something like that, I'd feel better about that. On the few occasions where I had to, I split it up between a couple of separate communications. But I was still nervous, until it went through. So, and just whatever you do, if it's a big transaction especially, well, you gotta watch the small ones too. Just pay close attention. I think compare that with the morning routine we just heard about. That's probably a good way to keep track. All right, just want to talk entertainment for a minute. Although you've been quite entertaining as we some of your stories. So if you have not seen the movie Thelma, it's a great story about the actress is actually 94 years old and starred in Thelma. She gets ripped off by a scammer and then wants to get her money back, and it's her story about how she attempts to do that. I won't give it away by saying whether she succeeds or not. There's another one called Mrs. Plansky's Revenge. This is a book. It's by a local author. The guy lives in Falmouth. He has two names that he publishes under. One is Spencer Quinn. That's the one that he did, Mrs. Plansky's Revenge. She's a widow. She gets scammed and she tries to get her money back. He also has a series under the same name about a detective dog duo that solves crimes, and it's all told from the dog's point of view, and it is so hilarious that I've had funny looks on the beach or on a plane when people look at me, what are you laughing at so hard? He also has a more adult series that's a little darker. Stephen King said is one of his favorite authors under a different pen name, Peter Abrahams. If you like that kind of stuff, it works. I will mention an old classic movie where bad was used for good. And that was The Sting. That's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's a con game, but the con game gets used for, I would say, good purposes. If you're into it, and only if you're into it, if you don't mind like the John Wick violence with a lot of language, there's one called The Beekeeper, which supposedly takes place in Springfield, but I grew up out near there. I never saw a place that looked like this farm this lady owned up in Springfield. But this guy totally trashes the scammers and destroys them. If you don't mind violence and really foul language, that's another option, but that depends on your taste. So if you tend to more wholesome, watch these two. And even if you don't tend to more wholesome, watch these two anyway. They're both really good. And they give you an idea of the scammer's mindset and some of what they use and how you can get in there. So, all right, I think that hits everything, unless there are any last questions. And we've got one more, yes.
Yes, if I'm about to bomb Yemen, should I talk about it?
So I couldn't hear that question, so speaking of bombing though, I did once get spam bombed, so I got, listed on like 500 subscriptions overnight, all at once in multiple countries, and it was a real pain to get out of, because they wanted to see if they can flood your email, then they can maybe get something through and you won't notice it. So it's another one of those techniques. So, all right, we got one last one.
Just in terms of resources, I've been really impressed with AARP has a fraud section on their website that talks about all the new frauds, and also you can call them if you're a victim of fraud. So I found them to be incredibly helpful.
Thank you. So one last resource that was mentioned is AARP has a very good fraud education and resolution area that it's worth talking with. So, all right, thanks everybody for all your attention.
Isn't he the best? Isn't he the best? And don't you want to take all of his courses? As I was listening to Brian, I was thinking, how many of those scams that I've gotten, right? We've all been involved in multiple ones. It's so common. I wonder how there's so many people out there trying to take your money. But again, thank you so much, Brian.